Hello, I'm Stephen Jerome again, reading from my third novel, The London Year. Terry's just arrived in London and finding his way about the city and learning about the English in general, which to him was rather a surprise. So this is part 9. The most deciding class indicator was accent. The writer and modernist painter Wyndham Lewis said the English are branded on the tongue. A beautiful, if somewhat horrific, expression, but totally correct. How one spoke, the phrases and tone one used not only indicated where one was from, sometimes one's university, but even more to the point one's situation. This was not necessarily a bad thing. While Londoners had a great affection for the quick and colorful Cockney accent, it indicated a provenance very different from the posh accents of the upper class, to say nothing of the dozens of mid-range variations depending what region throughout the entire UK one was from. Accent rather locked one in. Of course, things did change in the 1960s when working-class musicians, artists, photographers, and models rose to the status of cultural heroes, bringing common accents with them. Their new dominance actually redefined England, softening its snobbery. But in general, one's linguistics anatomy was still one's societal destiny, and it was hard to talk your way out of it. Barely a week into my 3-week stay with the Langers, talking a lot more with Janice than I ever did with Ted, who tended to make pronouncements that ended conversation. I began to see their life below the surface. I was witness to the creeping disappointment of a wife whose picture-perfect husband was being twisted by the knee-jerk suspicion and control that he brought home every day from his job at the prison. The door locks weren't strong enough. He didn't like the color of new neighbors down the road. His xenophobic skepticism made even me a suspect. The Bach I listened to on the radio was derided as church music. He scoffed at the notion that little Sally and Tom, their 2 young kids, might actually find something to enrich their lives in London's great museums. He'd never take his kids there, he said. They'd be bored to death. What became the biggest event in the time I was there was the purchase of a color television. Janice was determined to have some reward as she watched with quiet dread while Ted grew moody, opinionated, and less of a man in her eyes for all the macho posturing. Once she hinted that the sex was disappointing because he had such a small, truly more than I wanted to know. When the television arrived, a few of Janice's girlfriends came over to see it installed. I was surprised at the to-do. Color TVs had been common in the States for at least 5 years, but in England, it was all still a big deal. Plans were already in the works for a football watching party the following Saturday, and Janice was determined to do her own controlling, so everything was just right. When Ted's mates arrived with their prettier wives and kids, food and drinks laid out, everyone excited, Janice became, for an afternoon, that victory-savoring bride in the photo. So I will continue reading from The London Year. Thank you for watching. What the fuck?